Breaking news now, and a rescue operation in Wales has saved a man who was trapped in a cave for 2 days.
I knew that George was in a really bad way and he could die.
262 rescuers, we understand, were involved.
And suddenly he was falling. He fell down into a rift.
Stuck underground for more than 50 hours with serious injuries.
The police come up and they say, "We're leaving it to you guys. We're not sending people down there." My name is Morgan Specht. I'm the senior instructor at Argoed Lwyd Outdoor Education Centre, and I've been working here for 8 years now. What I love about my job is it's just being out in nature and being in a place where I'm really familiar and comfortable, and I can take people into that experience. My favorite sport, which I get out of bed to run and do, is going caving. You can get to beautiful places underground that very few people have ever seen. And you really have to earn the right to get there. It's like getting to the top of the mountain, but you have to crawl, swim, abseil, and then you have to get back out. I've been a member of the South and Mid Wales Cave Rescue Team for 8 years now, I think. Last year, there was a big rescue, and it set 2 records. I think one was 300 people were involved in the rescue, and the other one was it took 54 hours from when George Linnane, somebody I knew as a part of the cave club I'm a member of, he had a fall and he fell in the cave quite a distance, about 30 feet or so. And I said this to the group the other day when I was taking them caving. People get a bit nervous about caves and collapses and things like that. But the cave we tend to go into is quite stable. 200 people a day go through there, led by instructors like myself, and we assess it and it's pretty safe. And anything that isn't safe, we point it out. Whereas what George was doing, he was in there with a photography team and they were photographing bits of the cave and formations that very few people had seen. So by that very nature, it hadn't been worn down. It hadn't really been assessed. It wasn't necessarily a safe part of the cave, as they soon discovered. And one of the members walked across this floor, and he walked across, and suddenly he was falling. He fell down into a rift and smashed his jaw and broke his leg and suffered some internal injuries. And it took about an hour and a half before his fellow caver got out to ask for help. Fortunately, it was bonfire weekend, so there were loads of people at the cave club, which is just outside the cave entrance where they were. And so they got their kit on, went straight into the cave, did the call out, and went to help out George. We, my wife and I, and our 2 small children were at home getting ready to come up to the cave club. We'd packed our van, we were ready to stay away for a night. We hadn't done this before with our kids. And so we were planning to be there for the weekend anyway. And my wife is one of the lead cave doctors for cave rescue. And she immediately got a phone call saying, "We need you up here now because there's a serious injury in the cave." They said where the cave was, and immediately I knew it's in part of the cave where you can't get to very easily. She was totally fine. The cave rescue team looked after her. She was the care package. They delivered her to George, and then she stabilized George. And I spent 12 hours on the surface looking after the 2 kids. Fortunately, it was late at night, so they slept. And then she got back, she knocked on the door of the van at 2 in the morning, and I said, "My turn, I'm going in." So at 3 in the morning, I entered the cave and came out at 3 o'clock the next day, having moved George about 500 meters through a narrow, winding passages up and down cliffs. For me, being the other half of the doctor, I knew that George was in a really bad way and he could die. But for the rest of the team, the idea was, he's going to make it. We're going to get him out. I'm the adventure guy in the relationship. However, her skills gazumped mine, so she was the doctor. So I didn't get as involved as I would have because I was on daddy childcare, and they were sort of heroic little characters too. My kids were brilliant. They made everybody laugh and smile. My son liked to do all the cleaning up and got involved with the cooking and all sorts of stuff. Teamwork was essential. 300 people involved in the cave rescue, 54 hours, all going into a cave, which is incredibly challenging and sporting and difficult. So logistically managing that is one thing, but keeping everybody else safe and keeping themselves safe and warm is also really hard. You can't just carry a stretcher by yourself. You have to have at least 6 of you, 7 of you, 8 of you, and you can only move a few feet before you're in a bit of passage where you can't move any further, so you have to pass it to the next people. So communication and planning and coordination is essential. The people in the hospital who took him in and kept him in there for a few weeks were really impressed that we managed to keep him stable and alive and recreate like basically an underground hospital, which is one of the reasons it took 54 hours, is because every few hours we had to stop, assess him, treat him, look after him. As a result, he was able to make a pretty much full recovery. He's joined up with the cave rescue himself and he's made contributions, and he'll be back caving. He's like quite a proficient cave diver. You know, that's usually where people get injured or come to harm, is cave diving in caves, but he just was really unlucky and fell. That story on that day and my experience of doing that really showed how well people can work together to sort things out. The fact that it's a volunteer organization and everyone was there, gave up their time and their strength and their skill and gave up their sleep and their family life because they really believed in rescuing this person, because it could be them. And it's one of the sayings in cave rescue and in mountain rescue and all these sort of voluntary things, it's the only people that can do it are the people that live it. And so only cavers can really rescue cavers, because outside was the paramedics and the police. The police come up and they say, "We're leaving it to you guys. We're not sending people down there. You guys are the experts." Yeah, so that's not everyday sort of activity at cave rescue. We've had about 5 dog rescues this year and other animals, and mostly it's people who are just a bit lost. It's very rare that you get a serious injury where somebody needs to be put on a stretcher. And the calculation in cave rescue is if it takes an hour to get there, it takes about 9 hours to get out.